monastery of Hemis in Ladakh, India, is the ancient record, a man called Isa. The documents recall his presence and his travels in the 1st century of the Common Era, his periods of study in Hinduism and Buddhism in Puri and Ladakh. But the Indian claims to Jesus' presence, alongside ancient claims from Tibet, Japan, England and France, when we come to Srinagar in Kashmir, to the shrine at Rosabal, in place of Isa, known as Yus Asaf, the teacher, healer, and leader of the healed, a 1st century Jewish man from Palestine, a man who had survived a Roman crucifixion, who lived and traveled to Kashmir, where he taught and healed others. From the Hebrew tradition, which is from the Middle East, originating in the Fertile Crescent. The story begins really with Abraham and Sarah emerging from a Sumerian-based culture, developing their own culture. Who were Abraham and Sarah? Where were they really from? Where was their culture from that it could be differentiated from ancient Sumerian-based cultures? In 2003, a chromosome study of the R1A1A haplogroup found a strong connection between Jewish priestly bloodlines of the Levitical families and the priestly Brahmin bloodlines from West Bengal in India. Perhaps the Hebrew tradition and the mysteries of ancient India are more connected than we'd ever thought. To India, the Vedic traditions, are the stories of Brahma and Saraswati, the progenitors of the many nations. I think I know those names. Brahma, Saraswati, progenitor of the many nations. Go to the Hebrew stories and you have Abraham and Sarah, the progenitors of, and we usually say of many nations. Abraham, the father of many nations. It's the father of the many nations. Abraham and Sarah is really a very ancient primordial story of human beginnings. Looking at the same story, the Hebrew story could be a part of the Vedic stories of Brahma and Saraswati, and maybe we should think again, therefore, about what we think the Hebrew tradition is and where it comes from and where those tribes came from. To think that everyone was locked in their tiny little region of the planet, I think the movement of human beings on planet Earth has always been much more fluid than we tend to give credit for. The antiquity of the Vedic traditions ought to command a bit more respect around the world, especially when we see that the Hebrew tradition may indeed be an offshoot of that ancient tradition. And I would suggest the names of Abraham and Sarah and the stories that emerge of them would support that idea. Another biblical story that connects Jesus with the East is the story of the Epiphany. Wise men from the East follow a light to a house in Nazareth because of a baby born to a Hebrew family. The wise men are not Hebrews, so they are not looking for a Messiah. They're foreign nationals, so they're not looking for a king. A story that stands on its own with a lot of mystery around it. Who were these wise men who've come from the East to honor Jesus? What are they honoring him for? Who do they think he is? If they're not believers in the Jewish Messiah, who are they honoring him as? In the Buddhist tradition, an anointed baby, one known in advance to be a great teacher and philosopher, is called a bodhisattva, a reincarnation of the spirit and consciousness of the Buddha. Because there's a moment when Jesus asks his followers, who do people say I am? And they say, well, some think that you are a reincarnation of Elijah or one of the other prophets. Reincarnation of Elijah or one of the other Old Testament prophets. But if we're setting the Hebrew tradition in Vedic tradition, could be another prophet, could be Buddha,